Welcome, kindred spirit. Today we're going to be talking about counter space, and we're also going to be talking about how counter space has actually been protection for me for certain jobs that I've had over my lifetime. And it was only when I was doing this project that the memories started coming back and I started making connections. But first, which I know you're going to want to see most, is the actual what is the remodel. The end of this cabinet is tomorrow's project. And all these pieces you see here are going to be used in that project. Got everything cut and have maybe the first coat on tonight. I don't know. But assembly will be tomorrow. Didn't have much scrap. In fact, I burned the scrap that I had last night, and it was just enough for kindling. These were the solutions that I was looking for. One is the lack of counter space for prep and plating. And you can see that it, is wavy. At its deepest is 20 inches. And then I have this 2-burner stove, a relatively new addition, taking up even more counter space. So I guess that even though I'd been thinking about it for a while, when I got that stove, everything changed. Also, what I was trying to solve is to be able to sit on my refrigerator and pull out one of these drawers to be able to eat a meal on it. And then the third thing that I was looking to do, which you're familiar with by now, is finding a way to kind of stage my rags, because I do try to not use paper towels. You can see that this is a brand new roll I put up there, but I'm going to say that probably will last me 2 months because I really try to be mindful. The rag storage are up there. That's totally clean. And then down here are in various stages of being used and dried, and then eventually, if they're really wet, if I really sopped up something really juicy, it has to go right out here to dry. Eventually, everything goes into this bag until it's wash day again. There was only 3 must-haves. Had to be lightweight, had to be compact, and most important, had to accommodate my chair hammock. My first design was going to be a permanent installation, and that even bought some materials which I was able to return. But that design got jettisoned out the day that I said, I think I'm going to put the chair hammock up, and realized that this design that I've been working on for a little while was completely off the table now and had to go back to square one. That's design, though. Always got to be, and that's why I really like to sit with the design for a little bit to see how it kind of fits into the flow. Always got to be about the flow, the vibe and the flow. Those, I guess, number 4 must-haves, and 5. Did you just see that shadow? Kitchen counters. I have a That just kind of threw me off there, seeing that bird flying over right before I started filming. There's that raven air spirit going on. Back to the counters though. I have a support that hinges out like this. Love piano hinges. And then also hinges down like this. And so, as you saw, I had the rags sitting here. And then the little countertops that I made are right in this little place right here. And I had to do a lot of thinking about getting these things out of there with all those obstructions. Having it tucked in like this was the idea of one of my campmates, because I was thinking about hanging them right outside, putting a little hole in it and hanging it. Instead, I have a very long time hook that I've been carrying around, usually in my kitchen somewhere. And I'm so glad that now I get to have it in a prominent space. Here is, this is like the plating area. This goes on just like that. Easy peasy. I can get to my second drawer underneath, which is food storage containers. This here so far has been mostly used as a drying space. I'm really drying a lot of vegetables in preparation for going to Canada, because I just heard that, or just learned that gas is really expensive there. Second, shelf, and you can see they're curved to fit the curve. Like this, and then like this, and then there we go. And I guess I should have wiped that off before I did it. There you go. So lightweight, so portable, so small. Just a little bit of extra space. And then to have seating, put this out, close that up, open this one, and there we have, if I want to prep sitting down or when I want to eat. The great part about these shelves is that they're just so lightweight. So even if I have some food prepped cutting there and I need to get a knife, just easy peasy. This is such an elegant solution. Thank you to Leah for the idea. Thanks for hanging around for after all the practical stuff. I'm not discounting the practical stuff, because anything that makes the days flow easier just helps with everything. And also doing a project like that is helping my daily existence be a little easier also gave me the opportunity in doing the project for my mind to wander and into so many very, very interesting spaces and places. I started just thinking of all the jobs I've had and how they were leaps into becoming more visible. And so I'm just going to run down the ones that stand out. First job, 14 years old, Marina snack bar, basically. So the hours were from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. The manager slash waitress had been there for years. One thing that I really, really remember is that right from the get-go, she treated me as an adult. I was 14. She showed me where the food was, showed me how to cook it, and basically just presumed that I could take it from there. And fortunately, I knew how to make breakfast because I was making breakfast at home. But it was a big flat griddle, and boy, did I have fun. And of course, there was the counter in front of it. What stands out in this particular job, not only is because my first job other than babysitting, is that I had my back to the counter. So I could hear everybody talking behind me, but I didn't have to interact. And that made me feel safer, and I could just concentrate on my job, but I could also be in the community. My second counter job that really speaks to me as far as offering protection is as a bartender. And I got this job after my practice husband and I went our separate ways. I wasn't a drinker. I didn't go to bars. My practice husband was the first, we met in high school and all that kind of story. Okay. So, I did try to go out alone and all. Bars were not then, nor are they now, really places that, that I really feel I'm going to connect in meaningful ways. And yet, at that stage of my life, I knew that I had to get out there. I knew actually that I was going to have children. And I knew that I had to pick myself up and go on alone. And so I got this bartending job. It was wonderful because I had that counter in front of me. I could learn how other people really are when they've been drinking and sitting at a bar, and it was very touching. I feel like just as a spiritual journey that it was very, very meaningful, my bartending years, because when I had jobs, I had in nightclubs, but also just regular restaurants. You have regular customers and you get to know them. So in that regard, the bartending job was maybe awakening this journey that I've been on to serve, and also to protection in feeling strong enough to do it in the way that seems like I'm supposed to be doing it. My third opportunity to use counter protection as a way to try to be more visible out into the world was at a dance studio. And by this time, I had moved out of the Coastal Closets company that I co-owned with Mike, my husband, and I was a life coach. I took that to mean that I was helping people take their external clutter. Instead of helping them respace that, I'm helping people respace their internal clutter. Just seemed like such a neat segue. I felt totally that's what I was supposed to do. And what I really wanted to do was help small business owners, solopreneurs, to go about building businesses in a way that is not mainstream. My first client was my daughter's dance teacher. And it was a wonderful experience helping them take a dream into a successful business. And after the first year, they needed somebody kind of quick to get behind the desk at kind of a critical time of the year, recital season. And so, since I helped with the business plan and things like that, and by then we were friends, they asked me to come in and help out. And I was there for 7 years at least. During that time, and probably a few years before then, that was when I was doing great uh, personal growth, study, uh, consciousness, mindfulness, um, just all kinds, taking in all kinds of information like a sponge. And one memorable experience that I had there was when I was working on anger. And I remember, well, if you are someone who supports a child in dance and have been to a dance studio, it's very easy in that insular world to kind of go crazy a little bit. It's so involved, and there's so many moving parts to being part of a dance studio and being part of a dance team, actually, is what I'm talking about. There's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of all kinds of emotions swirling around. And it gave me a lot of practice in, especially people coming and not taking what they're giving to me across that counter personally, because they are just wanting the best for their child. And also, they have a lot of things going on in their life too. And I always knew when I was in the anger. Um, and so at this point, I was going to try to, as soon as I noticed I was angry, to stop, take a breath. And then when I felt like I could come to it with an open heart and really wanting to help, only then speak. So this one mom was, I noticed I was getting angry on the inside. It wasn't showing on the outside. I was great at that. So I felt myself getting angry. And when I did, I closed my eyes, I took a breath, and I don't know how long I counted, but what I do know is that when I opened my eyes, the person across the counter from me had a bewildered look on their face. And then as I opened my eyes, maybe fearful, like I was going to say something mean back. It was quite, I could feel it. They were all of a sudden ready to recoil from me. And instead, I just said, "How can I help you?" with as much openness as I could. And within a very few moments, we were hugging. So that really was an eye opener for me. About 10 years later, I was invited to take over an existing shop in the small town that I had moved to a short time before. The name of that shop was the Serenity Shop. And the people that owned it gave me the opportunity when they decided that it was time for them to move on to their next chapter. They gave me the opportunity to take over this existing business that had, been in business for a couple of years. And I had done workshops there, and I also rented a room there, and that's where I offered Reiki. And I had already knew that I was going to be traveling, so I had to do a lot of introspection about committing to a lease for a certain amount of time where I was going to stay in one place, because I saw myself as traveling, but and here I am traveling. So it just wasn't the time for me to travel. It was time for me to commit, put down some roots in the Serenity Shop, and have another 10-year wonderful experience where a counter was involved. I had the whole shop was 500 square feet, small retail shop in the front, a counter that also was my laboratory where I made soap and all that. And then in the back was a very large 14 feet by 14-foot treatment room where I offered pedicures, Reiki workshops, Reiki classes, and Oracle card readings. And it was only me working there. So when I was in the treatment room, I put up a little sign and people would leave their money and buy things. And the shop was so small, I could always tell if something was missing. Only after my clients were telling me that they didn't want to leave money unless I bolted down the money box did I bolt down the money box. But for 10 years, I ran that shop on the honor system. When my husband was sick and in the hospital, one of my fellow business owners, a couple of doors down from me, opened my shop in the morning and closed my shop in the afternoon, just dependent on the honor system of people in town to come in and buy the things that they needed in that retail space. Never had a problem. And what I credit the reason why I never had a problem with anyone stealing any things is that before I decided that I was going to operate on the honor system, I decided that if someone did steal something without paying, that I was going to line up with that, wish that person well, and that whatever they took would enrich their life and help them to feel better. I never had a problem. It was and is probably still a pretty conservative area, and yet I always felt welcome, and I loved it. I loved being there. I loved seeing that there were a lot of people out there like me. I wasn't thinking that there was where I was living. And all in all, just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And me more overtly presenting the things that I've learned um, um, in the interactions in this very, I believe, healing space called the Serenity Shop. And so here is the next chapter. My most recent counter, as I become even more visible here on YouTube and other various things. And I guess on some level, I needed to have a counter. I needed to have a little counter protection. I've come a long way. I love connecting with people, heart to heart, one-on-one, vulnerable to vulnerable, healing the world.